Most people in their 20s don't realize they're destroying themselves. Not dramatically, not violently, just slowly, quietly, invisibly, one dopamine hit at a time. You think your life is fine because nothing is collapsing yet. You think scrolling, streaming, snacking, swiping, and escaping are harmless because everyone else is doing it too. But underneath that fake sense of normal is a truth you don't want to face. Your brain is being rewired into weakness. You're turning yourself into someone who can't focus, can't commit, can't push, can't endure anything that doesn't give instant pleasure. And the worst part is you think it's normal. You think this is just how life feels now. It isn't. This is how addiction feels. You don't realize it yet, but dopamine addiction is sabotaging your entire future. It's the reason your goals feel too big. It's the reason discipline feels impossible. It's the reason you can't sit alone with your thoughts without needing a distraction to numb the discomfort. Your 20s are supposed to be the decade where you build yourself, your mind, your habits, your standards. Instead, you're scattering your attention across thousands of micro pleasures that leave you empty and anxious. You keep telling yourself you're young, that you have time, that things will eventually fall into place, but time doesn't fix dopamine addiction. It only deepens the trap until your brain no longer remembers how to function without constant stimulation. The truth is simple and ugly. Your 20s will disappear faster than you think, not because life is unfair, but because you're wasting them. You wake up tired, not because you worked hard, but because your brain is fried from compulsively checking your phone before you even get out of bed. You know it, you feel it. That hollow crash after every cheap dopamine spike, that restless urge to check something, anything, even when nothing has changed. That inability to stay present in a conversation without your mind drifting back to the glowing screen, you're addicted. And addiction always comes with a cost. The cost is your time, your potential, your self-control, your ability to build a life that actually means something. Everyone tells you to enjoy your 20s, but enjoyment isn't your problem. You've had too much enjoyment, too many easy highs, too many instant rewards, too many shortcuts that make effort feel intolerable. The real danger isn't that you don't enjoy life enough. The danger is that you enjoy it too cheaply. You've taught your brain to chase the shallowest pleasures because they require nothing from you. No risk, no discipline, no growth, no identity, just another hit. And every time you give in, you weaken yourself a little more. You don't notice the damage at first. Dopamine addiction doesn't hit all at once. It corrodes slowly. It eats at your ambition, your hunger, your drive, your courage. It kills your ability to tolerate boredom, which also means it kills your ability to learn, to work deeply, to master anything. You start losing your patience. You start losing your focus. You start losing yourself. You pretend everything is normal, but you know something is wrong. You feel numb. You feel exhausted. You feel like your mind is slipping into some fog you can't explain. And the saddest part, you accept it. You treat it like just another part of adulthood. But it's not adulthood. It's addiction. The brutal truth is that dopamine addiction makes you useless. Not because you aren't capable, but because you can't stay with anything long enough to become skilled. Your attention span is broken. Your discipline is fake. Your goals are fantasies. You talk about success like it's a mood instead of a process. You dream of the future, but can't endure 5 minutes of silence without grabbing your phone. You say you want to improve, but you can't tolerate the discomfort required for improvement. Dopamine addiction has turned you into someone who escapes instead of someone who builds. You think you're chasing pleasure, but really you're running from discomfort, and discomfort is the only thing that forces growth. Every meaningful achievement requires boredom, frustration, repetition, effort, everything. Dopamine addiction has trained you to avoid. When you run from discomfort, you run from transformation. You run from your potential. You run from the version of yourself you claim to want to become. You don't fail because you're unlucky. You fail because you're overstimulated, under-disciplined, and mentally soft. Now comes the darker part. You are not the one controlling your addiction. Your addiction is controlling you. You are not choosing your habits. Your habits are choosing your life. You are not wasting your 20s accidentally. You are wasting them automatically. Your brain has been hijacked by systems built to exploit your weaknesses. Every app, every notification, every algorithm is designed to make you crave the next hit. You are not resisting because you barely remember what resisting feels like. Dopamine addiction doesn't just steal time, it steals identity. You are becoming someone who no longer decides what they do, someone who reacts instead of chooses, scrolls instead of thinks, watches instead of acts. And here's the paradox that should terrify you. The more dopamine you consume, the less pleasure you actually feel. The more stimulation you chase, the more numb you become. You keep increasing the dosage, but the reward keeps shrinking. Your brain stops responding. Your joy becomes dull. Your passions die out. Your goals feel distant. Everything becomes too much effort, too much work, too slow. life becomes a blur of micro highs and macro regrets. This paradox is the silent reason so many people wake up at 30 with nothing but anxiety and disappointment. They didn't fail because they were incapable. They failed because their brain was too overstimulated to care. Most people waste their 20s not because they're stupid, but because they underestimate how dangerous dopamine addiction really is. They think they'll figure it out later. They think the future version of themselves will magically be disciplined. But discipline is not something you suddenly have at 30. Discipline is something you train in your 20s or lose forever. Dopamine addiction doesn't just weaken your focus, it rewires the core of who you are. Your ego starts attaching itself to easy wins. You begin valuing things that take zero effort. You start defining yourself through your digital identity, not your real-world actions. Your brain becomes addicted to the illusion of progress instead of actual progress. You scroll motivational content instead of building discipline. You watch other people succeed instead of doing what they did. You fantasize about changing your life, but you never sit through the discomfort required to change it. You think consuming information is the same as becoming better. It's not. It's self-deception dressed as self-growth. Your ego becomes fragile because dopamine addiction keeps you in a cycle of short-term highs and long-term disappointment. You hype yourself up about goals, but you never follow through. You tell yourself you're capable of great things, but your habits prove the opposite. Eventually, your ego cracks. You start feeling ashamed of the gap between who you pretend to be and who you actually are. You try to hide it behind jokes, sarcasm, excuses, victim narratives, anything that takes the blame off your own choices. But late at night, when the distractions fade, you feel the truth. Your life isn't stagnant by accident. You made it that way. Projection becomes a coping mechanism. You start resenting people who are disciplined because they expose your lack of discipline. You start judging people who are ambitious because they remind you of the goals you abandoned. You start mocking people who work hard because their effort highlights your laziness. It's easier to call someone obsessive than admit you're weak. It's easier to criticize someone's drive than confront your own avoidance. Dopamine addiction doesn't just drain your focus, it turns your psychology against you. It makes you resent the very qualities you need to fix your life. Fear grows quietly inside you. Not fear of the world, but fear of yourself, fear of who you've become, fear of your own inability to follow through, fear of your shrinking attention span, fear that you're losing your edge, your spark, your potential, fear that you're becoming someone forgettable, but instead of confronting the fear, you run. You bury it under entertainment, distractions, endless content designed to keep your brain buzzing so you never have to feel anything deeply. You fear boredom because boredom forces you to face yourself, and facing yourself is the one thing your addiction has made you incapable of doing. Social comparison becomes poison. You scroll through lives that look better than yours, achievements that feel harder than anything you've done, bodies sculpted through discipline you don't have, skills earned through patience you never practiced. You tell yourself you're not jealous, but you are. Not because you want their lifestyle, but because you want their discipline, their freedom, their self-control. But instead of learning from them, you envy them, and envy slowly transforms into self-hatred. Every comparison becomes a reminder of your own wasted time. Avoidance becomes the default setting of your life. You avoid doing hard things because they feel intolerable. You avoid important tasks because they require effort. You avoid emotional discomfort because feeling anything real overwhelms your dopamine-flooded brain. You avoid making decisions because decisions force responsibility. You avoid silence because silence exposes your emptiness. You avoid commitment because commitment requires consistency, and consistency is something you're no longer capable of. You avoid growth because growth looks boring compared to the cheap highs you're addicted to. Avoidance feels safe, but it's the slowest form of self-destruction. Digital identity addiction becomes your new reality. You spend more time being alive on your screen than in your own life. You care more about how your life looks than how it actually feels. You curate yourself instead of improving yourself. You build a digital version of you that looks confident, productive, interesting, but that version isn't real. It's a mask, a costume, a fantasy. And every time you compare your real self to your digital self, you lose respect for who you actually are. You become a spectator in your own life, watching yourself pretend to be someone you're not. The illusion of control is what keeps you stuck. You think you can quit anytime you want. You think you can change your life whenever you decide. You think discipline is something you'll magically wake up with one day. But addiction doesn't disappear just because you want it to. Every day you reinforce the habit. Every day you deepen the groove in your brain. Every day you lose a little more control. You aren't addicted because you're weak. You're addicted because your environment is engineered to make you weak. But your refusal to fight back, that's on you. And if you don't fight now, you won't fight later. You'll settle, you'll coast, you'll slowly collapse into a version of yourself you no longer recognize. Most people don't notice they're addicted because dopamine addiction doesn't make you feel out of control. It makes you feel comfortable, numb, distracted, safe. It's the quiet addictions that ruin your life, not the obvious ones. The addictions that look harmless. The addictions everyone participates in. The addictions that no one warns you about because they've normalized their own decline. You don't lose your 20s in a dramatic explosion. You lose them in silent, repetitive choices that feel fun in the moment and devastating in hindsight. Your 20s don't get wasted in one big mistake. They get wasted in thousands of tiny decisions that feel too small to matter. 5 more minutes, 1 more episode, 1 more scroll, 1 more day of avoiding the work you said you'd do, 1 more night of staying up late for no reason, 1 more morning of waking up exhausted and pretending it's normal. The life you want is buried under all those 1 more moments you chose instead of discipline. The most painful truth about dopamine addiction is that it steals your ability to feel alive. Not all at once, not loudly, slowly, quietly. It replaces real satisfaction with artificial highs. It replaces real progress with illusions of progress. It replaces real ambition with daydreams. It replaces real discipline with empty plans. Eventually, your 20s slip by without you ever truly experiencing them. You weren't present, you weren't building, you weren't growing, you were just chasing stimulation, mistaking motion for meaning. You start noticing the consequences in moments when you least expect them. You'll sit in a room full of people and feel disconnected because your mind can't sit still long enough to be part of the moment. You'll try to read a page and feel your brain twitch for your phone, desperate for a quicker reward. You'll attempt a job, a project, a passion, and feel a strange internal shaking because your brain hasn't practiced sustained effort in years. You'll want to chase a dream, but realize you can't even tolerate 5 minutes of discomfort. And then it hits you. It's not the world that's stopping you. It's you. This is the frightening part. Dopamine addiction doesn't just ruin your habits. It ruins your character. You become someone who avoids difficulty, someone who folds under pressure, someone who needs constant comfort to feel normal, someone who can't commit to anything that doesn't feel instantly gratifying. You begin to shrink, not physically, but psychologically. Your resilience weakens. Your frustration tolerance collapses, your sense of purpose erodes, you begin living life in a shallow emotional range where nothing deeply excites you and nothing deeply scares you. You become flat, numb, half awake, and then you look around and see other people your age building things, businesses, skills, relationships, reputations, and something breaks inside you. Not jealousy, not anger, something darker. A realization that you could have been more if you weren't constantly drowning your potential in cheap dopamine. You don't just regret the time you wasted, you regret the person you allowed yourself to become. You lose trust in yourself. Every time you said you'd stop scrolling but didn't. Every time you said you'd start tomorrow but didn't. Every time you promised you'd change but didn't. Each broken promise to yourself becomes a scar on your identity. You stop believing your own words. You stop respecting yourself. You become a stranger to your own goals. You say you want success, but your actions contradict you. You say you want discipline, but your routines show otherwise. You start hating yourself quietly, not because you're broken, but because deep down you know you abandoned your own potential. The darkest part of dopamine addiction is the illusion that you can escape its consequences. You think you have plenty of time. You think turning 30 is far away. You think adulthood will somehow force you to get serious. But nothing magical happens when you turn 30. If anything, the consequences hit harder because now the world expects something from you. And the horrifying truth is that you will still be the same person you were, same habits, same addictions, same fears, same avoidance patterns, just older, more tired, and with fewer excuses. There comes a moment, maybe at 28, maybe at 33, when you wake up and realize the people you admired are now far ahead of you. They didn't get lucky, they didn't have more time, they just didn't waste their 20s. They built momentum while you built avoidance. They built discipline while you built dependence. They built careers while you built distractions. They built a self they can respect while you built a self you hide behind a screen. And suddenly, the truth becomes unbearable. The life you dream about won't wait for you. The world won't pause while you fix yourself. Opportunities won't freeze in time until you feel ready. If you waste your 20s, you don't get them back. They dissolve into a fog of memories where nothing meaningful happened because you were too busy chasing stimulation to actually live. You start feeling the cumulative weight of all the things you didn't do, the languages you didn't learn, the skills you didn't practice, the passions you didn't explore, the body you didn't take care of, the relationships you didn't build, the habits you didn't enforce. Time becomes a mirror, and the reflection is brutal. It shows you exactly what dopamine addiction took from you, and what you allowed it to take. You realize discipline wasn't the enemy, discomfort wasn't the enemy, boredom wasn't the enemy, your own inability to endure them was the enemy. Everything you avoided was the exact thing that would have shaped you. The silence you ran from was where clarity lived. The hard work you dodged was where confidence grew. The long hours you refused to put in were where mastery happened. And now you see it clearly. Your addiction didn't just waste your time, it stole the life you could have built. But the final punch is this. You don't fix dopamine addiction by getting older. You fix it by getting stronger. And most people won't. Not because they can't, but because they don't want to feel the withdrawal, the boredom, the discomfort, the frustration. They want the benefits of discipline without the suffering that builds it. They want the identity of a focused person without the sacrifice. They want the life of someone who trained their mind without ever training their own. And this is how people destroy themselves. Not through dramatic failure, but through tiny, numbing habits repeated across entire years. They don't crash, they fade. They don't fall, they dissolve. They don't suffer loudly, they suffer quietly, scrolling their life away while telling themselves they'll change eventually. But eventually never comes for people who refuse to confront themselves now. If you stay addicted to dopamine, your 20s will collapse into a decade of false comfort and real regret. You'll look back and realize you didn't build anything worth keeping. You'll see a trail of abandoned goals behind you. You'll feel the weight of all the things you could have done but didn't. And the worst part, you'll know exactly why. You'll know it wasn't fate or luck or circumstances. It was you, your choices, your habits, your avoidance, your craving for constant pleasure, your refusal to endure discomfort long enough to grow. The story of your 20s will be one of wasted potential, not because you were incapable, but because you were overstimulated, distracted, and mentally soft. You let the world turn your brain into a slot machine, and now you're shocked that you can't focus on anything long enough to change your life. But that's the truth you have to face. Dopamine addiction is not harmless. It is not a phase. It is not a joke. It is the reason your 20s slip away without you noticing. And if you don't stop it now, if you don't reclaim your mind, your discipline, your boredom tolerance, your ability to delay gratification, then the rest of your life will follow the same trajectory, one long, slow descent into regret. Not dramatic regret, quiet regret. The kind that wakes you up at night and makes you wish you could go back and try again. But you can't. Time doesn't negotiate. It doesn't refund. It doesn't pause. Your 20s are your foundation, and dopamine addiction is cracking it beneath you. If you don't fix it, you won't just waste your 20s, you waste the life that depends on them. That's it for today, guys. Please hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. See you in the next one. Thank you.